Frank Holloway crouched behind a fallen pine tree and raised his binoculars. The morning mist still clung to the valley floor of Yellowstone National Park, but the golden light of dawn illuminated something unusual hovering above a grazing elk. Heard? Frank adjusted the focus. The object was about the size of a dinner plate, metallic, and moved with purpose that no bird or drone could match. "You're going to miss breakfast again," Diane Miller called from a few yards back on the trail. Her hiking boots crunched through the frosty grass as she approached. "What's so interesting that you're willing to skip coffee?" Frank didn't lower his binoculars. "There's something watching the elk. Third time I've seen one this week." Diane sighed and pulled out her own field glasses. "Probably just another filmmaker with a fancy drone. National Geographic was here last month. No film crew would design a drone like that," Frank whispered. "Look at how it moves, and the way the elk don't react to it." Diane focused her binoculars. The object hovered silently, occasionally emitting a faint blue light that scanned over the animals. "Okay, that is weird," she admitted. "Government. Research, maybe?" As they watched, the object drifted toward a massive bull elk. The blue light intensified, creating a grid pattern over the animal's body. The elk continued grazing, completely undisturbed. "I've filed 3 reports with the Park Service," Frank said. "They think I'm seeing things." A massive grizzly bear emerged from the tree line across the valley. The elk herd scattered, but the floating object didn't retreat. Instead, it quickly moved toward the bear, scanning it with even greater intensity. "Get your camera," Frank hissed. "Nobody will believe this without evidence." Diane fumbled with her backpack, pulling out a high-resolution camera with a telephoto lens. She snapped several photos, the shutter clicking rapidly. The object suddenly rotated, its scanning beam switching off. It rose straight up at impossible speed, vanishing into the clouds. "Did you get it?" Frank asked, his voice tight with excitement. Diane checked her camera display and smiled. "Got it. Not the clearest shots, but definitely shows something unusual." Frank stood, brushing pine needles from his khaki pants. "We need to show these to Pete at the research center." 3 hours later, they sat in the cramped office of Pete Garrison, Senior Wildlife Management Officer for Yellowstone. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed as Pete scrolled through the photos on Diane's camera. "Could be a drone," Pete said, scratching his gray beard. "Lots of tourists bring them even though they're not supposed to." "It moved like nothing I've ever seen," Frank insisted, completely silent, no rotors. "And the animals didn't react to it at all." Pete leaned back in his chair. "Fry, you've been working too hard. That new predator tracking project has you in the field 18 hours a day." "Pete, we both saw it," Diane added. "I'm usually the skeptical one, but this was different." Pete handed the camera back. "Tell you what, email me these photos. I'll pass them along to the air traffic monitoring folks. But don't get your hopes up about aliens." He chuckled at his own joke. Frank and Diane left the office, walking across the research center campus in silence. "He didn't believe us," Frank finally said. "Would you?" Diane asked. "If someone came to you with blurry photos of a flying object?" Frank stopped walking. "You're right. We need better evidence." 2 weeks later, their chance came. Frank had set up camera traps near locations where he'd previously spotted the objects. At 3:17 a.m., his phone buzzed with an alert. One of the motion-activated cameras had triggered. Frank drove to the research center in his pajamas and downloaded the footage. The night vision camera had captured a clear image of an object hovering just 6 feet above the ground. This time there were 2 of them. The blue scanning light passed over a sleeping fox, then over a nearby rabbit. The object seemed to be comparing the predator and prey. Frank sent the video to Diane with a text. "Told you. Meet me at 7. By the time Diane arrived at the center that morning, Frank had reviewed the footage a dozen times. He'd also found 3 more sightings from his other cameras. "This changes everything," Diane said, watching the videos. "These aren't random sightings. They're studying the animals, comparing different species." "But who?" Frank asked. "And why?" The answer came sooner than either expected. but from much further away than they imagined, aboard the massive vessel Taxonomic Explorer orbiting discreetly. Behind Earth's moon, ZK Thrax examined the data streams from the surface probes. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as the holographic displays showed various Earth creatures. "The latest scans confirm our hypothesis," he told his research partner. "The predator-prey ratios are unprecedented." Vulupan moved her slender frame across the laboratory, her skin shifting colors to match her excitement. "The energy expenditure of these creatures is remarkable. Look at this one," she gestured at a display showing a wolverine. "Small body mass, yet capable of killing prey 5 times its size. The biodiversity weapons index is off our scales." Skarax agreed. "We'll need to report this to Chief Taxonomist Gleekor." The laboratory door slid open with a soft hiss. Chief Taxonomist Gleekor entered, his ceremonial classification robes flowing behind him. His age showed in the faded blue of his skin and the stiffness of his movements. "I've reviewed your preliminary findings," Gleekor said. "Is Earth truly as dangerous as you claim?" Skarax activated a new display. "We've been studying this planet for nearly 8 decades, sir. The evidence is overwhelming. Even their smallest creatures possess defense mechanisms that would qualify as weapons on any civilized world." The display showed a honey badger fighting off a pride of lions, a bombardier beetle shooting boiling chemicals, and a platypus with venomous spurs. "And these are just individual examples," Vulupan added. "The entire ecosystem functions as an evolutionary arms race, each species constantly developing better killing or defense tools." Gleekor's skin darkened with concern. "The dominant species, the humans, are they aware of what they possess?" "They study their wildlife, but they don't seem to understand how extraordinary their planet is," ZK Thrax explained. "They take it for granted. To them, this is normal." "We need more data," Gleekor decided. "Send a research team to their Amazon region? The biodiversity there should provide conclusive evidence for classification." 2 days later, the mood on the Taxonomic Explorer turned somber. The research team sent to the Amazon had failed to report back. Their final transmission mentioned something about small biting insects and large aquatic reptiles. Gleekor called an emergency meeting of the ship's council. "We've lost 3 researchers," he announced to the gathered scientists. "To creatures so small our scanners barely detected them," murmurs spread through the chamber. "I've made my decision," Gleekor continued. "Earth must be classified as a Class X weapons repository. And we must make official contact with the humans." "Contact?" Vulupan gasped. "Is that wise?" "We must warn them," Gleekor said gravely, "about their own planet. And we must warn the galaxy about Earth. The living weapons they take for granted could destabilize the peace of 1,000 worlds." Back on Earth, Frank Holloway had no idea that his observations would soon trigger humanity's first official contact with alien life. He simply knew that something strange was watching the wildlife he'd dedicated his life to studying, and he wouldn't rest until he discovered why. The world changed on a Tuesday morning. Frank was pouring his second cup of coffee in the research center break room when every phone, television, and computer screen flashed with the same emergency broadcast. A sleek silver craft had landed. On the lawn of the United Nations headquarters in New York, strange beings had emerged requesting an urgent meeting with Earth's leaders. "Are you seeing this?" Diane burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Aliens! Actual aliens!" Frank stared at the television screen. The camera showed a ship about the size of a city bus, with no visible engines or windows. 4 beings stood in front of it, their blue skin shimmering in the sunlight. They had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern and wore what looked like formal robes covered in complex symbols. "They look exactly like the objects we saw," Frank whispered. "The same blue light." His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number from Washington, D.C. "Dr. Holloway," said a formal voice when he answered. "This is Agent Carter with the State Department. A helicopter will arrive at your location in 30 minutes. You and Dr. Miller are requested to attend an emergency meeting in New York." "Us? Why?" Frank asked, But the line had already gone dead. Diane looked at him questioningly. Frank showed her his phone. Apparently, our wildlife observations just became a matter of national security. The helicopter landed exactly 28 minutes later. By sunset, Frank and Diane found themselves in a heavily guarded conference room at the United Nations, surrounded by world leaders, military officials, and scientists from a dozen countries. A stern woman in a dark suit approached them. Secretary Williams. Your reports about unusual objects observing wildlife in Yellowstone are the only documented human observations of what we believe were scout drones from the visitors. They've asked specifically to speak with wildlife experts. They want to talk about animals? Diane asked, confused. Apparently that's their primary interest in Earth, Secretary Williams replied. They've requested that you join the first contact team. Before Frank could respond, the doors opened. 4 of the blue-skinned aliens entered, accompanied by an escort of UN security personnel. The room fell silent. The tallest alien stepped forward. A small device on its chest glowed, and it spoke in perfect English. I am Chief Taxonomist Gleekor of the Nimbari Scientific Collective. We thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Its voice had a musical quality. Rising and falling in unusual patterns. The world leaders introduced themselves one by one. When they finished, Gleekor gestured to Frank and Diane. We recognize the wildlife observers from your Yellowstone region. Your curiosity does you credit. Frank felt dozens of eyes turned toward him. He cleared his throat nervously. You were studying our animals? Why? Gleekor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. For the same reason we have initiated this contact. To understand and classify the most dangerous ecosystem known to our galactic community. A murmur ran through the room. Dangerous? The UN Secretary-General leaned forward. Are you suggesting Earth poses a threat? Not your civilization, said another Nimbari, stepping forward. My name is ZK Thrax, lead researcher. We have been studying Earth for 78 of your years. It is your wildlife that concerns us. ZK Thrax raised a slender hand. A holographic display appeared in the center of the conference table. It showed images of various Earth animals, a honey badger, an electric eel, a box jellyfish, a poison dart frog. By the standards of all known worlds, nearly every creature on your planet qualifies as a living weapon, ZK Thrax explained. The evolutionary path taken by life on Earth is unprecedented. Vulupan, the female Nimbari, continued. On other worlds, evolution favored cooperation and symbiosis. On Earth, it created an arms race of offensive and defensive capabilities. The hologram changed to show a bombardier beetle mixing chemicals to create a burning spray. This small insect manufactures and deploys chemical weapons that would violate treaties on 17 worlds. Next came footage of a mantis shrimp. This creature strikes with the force of a bullet. Its hunting appendages accelerate faster than your military projectiles. The display showed more examples: the paralytic venom of cone snails, the deadly precision of jumping spiders, the calculated hunting tactics of orcas. 3 of our researchers were lost in your Amazon region, Gleekor said solemnly. 1 to venomous insects, 1 to aquatic predators, and 1 to microscopic parasites. All within 48 hours of arrival. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Finally, the President of the United States spoke. Are you here to warn us that our planet is dangerous? We're already aware of that. No, Gleekor replied. We are here to officially classify Earth as a Class 10 weapons repository under galactic law. This classification has significant implications for your species' place in the larger community. Secretary Williams leaned forward. Are we being quarantined? Restricted? Not restricted, ZK Thrax clarified. Protected. And protecting others from unwitting exposure to your wildlife. Frank raised his hand hesitantly. When Gleekor nodded to him, he asked, what exactly makes Earth animals so different from those on other worlds? Vulupan's skin shifted to a deeper blue. Most worlds develop 1 or 2 species with defensive capabilities. Earth has thousands. Your planet's history of mass extinctions created evolutionary pressure unlike anything we've seen. Each extinction event reset the competition, driving innovations in killing and survival techniques. The hologram changed to show a comparative chart. Earth's biodiversity dwarfed the other planets shown. Your food chain, as you call it, ZK continued, is actually an interlocking web of predator-prey relationships of extraordinary complexity. Each creature is either a weapon or has defenses against weapons. The UN Security Council members exchanged concerned glances. The Russian representative spoke up. How do we know this is not prelude to invasion? Perhaps you fear our planet because you intend conquest. Gleekor's skin paled slightly. If conquest were our intention, we would not have revealed ourselves. The Nimbari are scientists, not warriors. We come seeking knowledge and offering warning. Warning about what? Frank asked. About the interest your planet will now generate, Gleekor replied. Once our classification becomes known, many species will wish to study Earth's wildlife, some with scientific interest, others with more concerning motives. Diane, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. You're saying our animals could be used as weapons by other aliens? Precisely, said Volupin. Your evolutionary crucible has created organisms with capabilities that technology struggles to replicate. A single box jellyfish contains enough venom to kill 60 humans. An electric eel generates power more efficiently than our portable generators. The Secretary General stood. We need time to process this information and consult with our governments. Can we reconvene tomorrow? Gleekor nodded. We understand. This is much to absorb. But please understand the classification process has already begun. The galaxy will soon know of Earth's unique status. As the meeting adjourned, Frank caught Diane's eye across the table. Neither needed to speak what they were thinking. Their careers studying wildlife had suddenly become matters of galactic importance. Outside the conference room, Secretary Williams approached them. The aliens have requested your help in explaining Earth's ecosystem to them. They seem to trust you. Frank nodded slowly. Tell them we'll help. But first, I want to see their research. If Earth really is unique in the galaxy, this could revolutionize our understanding of biology. And evolution, Diane added. We need to see what they know. 3 days after the United Nations meeting, Frank found himself on a small research boat in the Florida Everglades. The humid air clung to his skin as he watched ZK Athrax hover cautiously at the edge of the boat, all 4 eyes fixed on the murky water. There, Frank pointed to ripples on the surface. That's an alligator, about 12 feet long from the size of those ripples. ZK Thrax's recording device hummed softly as it documented the predator. Remarkable. A living fossil with bite force exceeding our industrial presses. Diane sat at the back of the boat with Volupin, showing her images on a tablet. These are just some of our predatory birds: eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, raptors. Volupin said, her skin changing to a light purple shade that Frank had learned indicated amazement. Their visual acuity exceeds our best scanning technology. A young man at the boat's controls turned to them. Dr. Holloway, should we try the mammal territory next? The panthers are usually active this time of day. Good idea, Kyle, Frank nodded. Kyle Patterson was a graduate student in zoology who had been assigned to their joint human-Nimbari research team. His enthusiasm and knowledge had quickly made him valuable. As Kyle guided the boat through narrow channels, Frank reflected on how quickly things had changed. The world governments had formed the Interspecies Biological Research Initiative, with Frank and Diane as the lead human representatives. Their mission was to verify the Nimbari claims by documenting Earth's most dangerous species through the alien classification system. So far, the Nimbari assessments seemed accurate. Earth's animals were indeed unique in their evolutionary adaptations for hunting, defense, and survival. I still don't understand something, Frank said as they approached a drier area where Florida panthers might be spotted. If our wildlife is so dangerous compared to other planets, how did humans become the dominant species? Skrax turned all 4 eyes toward Frank. That is precisely what we are still analyzing. By all our predictions, humans should have been eliminated by the more efficient predators. Maybe because we're smart? Kyle suggested from the helm. We figured out tools and stuff. Intelligence exists throughout the galaxy, Vilupin replied. But humans display unique traits. You deliberately conquered your predators rather than avoiding them. You weaponized your intelligence. Kyle cut the engine as they reached a viewing area. Isn't that what any smart species would do? No, Zk said firmly. Most intelligent. Species evolved to live in harmony with their ecosystems. Humans evolved to dominate theirs. Frank spotted movement in the trees along the shore. There, panther. The sleek predator moved gracefully through the underbrush, barely visible except to trained eyes. The Nimbari recording devices whirred excitedly. Another apex predator? Vilupin noted. Your planet has an unusually high number of apex predators coexisting in proximity. Actually, Kyle said, looking thoughtful, humans are the real apex predator now. We're the most dangerous species on Earth. The boat fell silent. Skrax and Vilupin exchanged glances, their skin shifting to a deep blue color Frank hadn't seen before. The human is correct, Zk finally said. Our classification system focused on natural weapons and defenses. We underestimated the human variable. What do you mean? Diane asked. Humans possess no natural weapons, Vilupin explained. No claws, minimal teeth, no venom, no significant strength. Yet you control all other predators. We're smart, Kyle shrugged. We make tools, not just tools, Zk corrected. You amplify the weapons of other species. You study them, then improve upon their techniques. The panther disappeared into the undergrowth. Kyle started the boat engine again, heading back toward the research center. I think we should show them my grandmother's farm next, he suggested. It's only a couple hours from here. Frank looked at him curiously. How would that help the research? Trust me, Kyle grinned. I have a theory about what makes humans special. The next day, they stood outside a modest farmhouse in central Florida. Mrs. Patterson was a small woman in her 70s, with gray hair pulled into a practical bun and hands weathered from decades of farm work. She greeted the aliens with surprising calmness. Kyle told me you're studying dangerous animals, she said, leading them toward the barn. Never thought anyone would come to study my farm for that. Inside the barn, 6 massive draft horses stood in their stalls. Each animal weighed over a ton and stood more than 6 feet tall at the shoulder. These are Clydesdales, Mrs. Patterson explained. I use them to pull heavy equipment sometimes, though mostly I keep them because I love them. Skirax's recording device scanned the enormous animals. The power in their legs could crush a Nimbari instantly. Oh, they're gentle giants, Mrs. Patterson laughed, approaching the nearest horse and stroking its nose. The massive animal nuzzled her affectionately. Belle here wouldn't hurt a fly. You control these creatures? Vilupin asked, her skin shifting to an astonished yellow. Control? I suppose they do what I ask because they trust me. A bark echoed from outside. Mrs. Patterson opened the barn door and 3 large dogs bounded in. My protection squad? She smiled. 2 German shepherds and a Rottweiler. The dogs circled the aliens curiously but stayed obedient at Mrs. Patterson's side. Predators, Zk whispered. Descended from wolves, you keep them as companions? Family, Mrs. Patterson. Corrected. They sleep in my bedroom. Kyle gave Frank and Diane a knowing look. See what I mean? What other species keeps predators as pets? The Nimbari researchers fell into a rapid discussion in their own language. Their skin colors shifted through various hues as they debated. Finally, Zk turned to the humans. We must upgrade Earth's classification immediately, he announced. Not merely a weapons repository, but a weapons laboratory. You humans don't just coexist with dangerous species, you domesticate them, breed them, and form emotional bonds with them. Is that bad? Mrs. Patterson asked, scratching one of the dogs behind its ears. Not bad, Vilupin said. Unprecedented. A small, elderly human female controlling animals that could kill her instantly, through nothing but mutual trust. This defies all evolutionary models. You're just describing farming, Kyle shrugged. Humans have done it for thousands of years. That's exactly the point, Frank realized, the implications becoming clear. What seems normal to us is extraordinary by galactic standards. We evolved among the galaxy's most dangerous creatures, survived them, and then made them our companions. As they prepared to leave the farm, ZK Thrax approached Frank privately. There is one more factor we must consider now, the alien said quietly. What's that? Frank asked. If humans evolved alongside living weapons, learned from them, and now control them, ZK Thrax's voice lowered, then by our classification system, humans themselves must be considered the most sophisticated weapons of all. Frank watched as Mrs. Patterson, barely 5 feet tall and in her 70s, commanded her massive dogs to sit with a simple hand gesture. The powerful animals obeyed instantly. You might be right, Frank nodded. But I think you're missing something important about us. What? We don't just control dangerous things, Frank said. We love them. The German Shepherd would die to protect Mrs. Patterson, and she'd do the same for it. That's not a weapon, that's a bond. ZK Thrax's skin shifted to a thoughtful green shade. Perhaps this is the most dangerous adaptation of all. News of Earth's classification as a weapons laboratory spread quickly through the galaxy. 1 month after the Nimbari's first contact, Earth's orbit became crowded with visitor ships from a dozen different alien species. Each brought their own scientists, diplomats, and observers, all eager to witness the deadly menagerie that was Earth's ecosystem. Frank stood at the window of the newly established Interspecies Coordination Center in Geneva, watching the distant lights of alien ships visible even in daylight. Behind him, Diane reviewed data on a large screen with Kyle and 2 representatives from a species called the Grell, insect-like beings with translucent exoskeletons. The trade offers are pouring in, Diane told Frank as he rejoined the group. 7 different species are offering technology in exchange for biological samples and research access. Most intriguing, said the taller Grell, its voice clicking through its translator. Our medical consortium offers water purification systems that could end drought on your world. We ask only to study your parasitic organisms. Frank frowned. Parasites, that's an unusual request. Particularly the cordyceps fungus, the Grell explained. The neural control mechanisms are unlike anything in our databases. Kyle looked up from his tablet with concern. That's the fungus that takes over insect brains, right? Makes zombie ants? Precisely, the Grell's antennae quivered with what might have been excitement, a remarkable adaptation. After the meeting, Frank, Diane, and Kyle gathered in their private office to compare notes. Something felt off about those Grell, Kyle said. Why would an advanced alien species need to study mind-controlling fungi? Diane nodded. I've been tracking the various research requests. There's a pattern emerging. Many species are specifically interested in organisms that manipulate behavior or deliver toxins. Weapons research, Frank concluded grimly. They're looking for ways to weaponize Earth biology. A soft chime announced ZK Thrax's arrival. The Nimbari researcher entered with his skin a troubled gray color. You have reached the same conclusion we have, ZK Thrax said without preamble. Not all visitors come with scientific curiosity alone. Which ones should we worry about? Frank asked. The Vrex Dominion concerns us most, ZK Thrax replied. They are a militaristic species with a history of biological warfare. Their ship arrived yesterday. Diane pulled up the visitor registry on her screen. They registered as a scientific delegation. Their stated interest is in defensive adaptations of prey species. A deception, ZK Thrax's skin darkened. The Vrex consider all other species potential prey or competition. Kyle leaned forward. So what do we do? We can't just kick them off the planet. We barely understand interstellar politics. We can restrict access, Frank suggested. No more unaccompanied. Research expeditions. All biological samples must remain on Earth under supervision. A wise precaution, ZK Thrax agreed. But the Vrex are known for their persistence. The next day, Diane missed the morning briefing. Frank tried calling her several times with no answer. By noon, he was worried enough to visit her apartment. He found her door slightly ajar. Inside, papers and books were scattered across the floor. Her computer was missing. On her desk lay a single data drive with a note, "Play me." Frank took the drive back to the coordination center and viewed it. In a secure room with Kyle and ZK Thrax. The screen showed Diane in dark clothing, hiding behind equipment in what appeared to be a ship's cargo hold. "Frank, if you're watching this, my cover is probably blown," her recorded image whispered. "I infiltrated the Vrex ship after intercepting communications about a collection operation. They're planning to steal specimens from the Everglades Wildlife Preserve tonight. They're specifically targeting venomous snakes and alligators." The video cut out abruptly. Frank looked at ZK Thrax, whose skin had gone pale blue with alarm. "We need to stop them," Frank said. "Can the Nimbari help?" "Direct intervention would violate numerous treaties," ZK Thrax replied. "But we can alert your authorities and provide technical support." That evening, Frank, Kyle, and a team of park rangers positioned themselves throughout the Everglades Preserve. Scrax provided them with Nimbari detection devices that could identify alien technology. "Movement at the north entrance," a ranger reported over the radio. "3 figures with some kind of containers." "That's them," Frank whispered to Kyle as they crouched in the undergrowth. "Any sign of Diane?" "Nothing yet," Kyle replied, scanning the darkness with night vision binoculars. "Wait, there's something else. Multiple heat signatures moving toward the Vrex from different directions." Frank adjusted his own binoculars. "Those aren't people. They're too low to the ground." A scream cut through the night, followed by shouting in an alien language. Through his binoculars, Frank saw one of the Vrex collectors flailing as something dark swarmed over its environmental suit. "African honeybees?" Kyle realized. "From the research apiary. Someone released them." Another shout. Then a splash. One of the aliens had backed into the water directly into alligator territory. "We need to move in," Frank said, but Kyle held him back. "Look." Kyle pointed to a shadow moving between trees. Even in the darkness, Frank recognized Diane's silhouette. More. Commotion erupted as the remaining Vrex collector fired some kind of energy weapon wildly into the trees. The blast struck a beehive, sending thousands more bees into the air. In the chaos, Diane slipped behind the alien and removed something from its equipment belt. "Their specimen container controls?" ZK Thrax explained through Frank's earpiece. "Without them, they cannot maintain stasis fields." A loud bang echoed through the preserve as one of the rangers fired his shotgun into the air. The sound startled a nearby alligator, which lunged from the water toward the source of the disturbance. The Vrex collector, already disoriented from the bee attack, stumbled directly into the reptile's path. What followed was a chaotic blur of splashing water, alien screaming, and the unmistakable sound of powerful jaws snapping shut. By dawn, the situation had been contained. 2 Vrex collectors were in custody, their environmental suits breached by countless bee stings. The third was in medical isolation, having barely survived an alligator attack. An emergency session of the Interspecies Coordination Council. The Vrex ambassador faced accusations from all sides. "This incident proves our point," Frank told the assembled delegates. "Earth's wildlife is not a resource to be exploited. It's a dangerous ecosystem that deserves respect." The Nimbari chief taxonomist Gleekor, who had returned to Earth for the emergency session, stood to address the council. "What happened in your Everglades is precisely why we classified Earth as we did," Gleekor said. "The Vrex attempted to steal what they saw as weapons. Instead, they encountered a defense system. They could not comprehend a complex ecosystem where every species, from the smallest insect to the largest predator, plays a role." The Vrex ambassador, a tall reptilian being with red scales, hissed in defiance. "We underestimated the primitive creatures." "Next time, there will be no next time," Diane interrupted. She had been found safe after the incident, though exhausted from her infiltration mission. "The Council is implementing new biosecurity protocols. All research must be conducted on Earth under joint supervision. Frank watched as delegates from across the galaxy nodded in agreement. Even those who had come seeking biological knowledge recognized the danger of removing Earth's creatures from their natural context. Perhaps, Thrax said quietly to Frank, the most dangerous thing about Earth is not any single species, but the way all your species interact. A perfect storm of evolutionary adaptations. Frank looked at the images displayed on the council screens, bees, alligators, and humans working together to defend their shared environment. Not just adaptations, Frank replied, connections. That's what the Vrex didn't understand. On Earth, everything is connected. 6 months after first contact with the Nimbari, Earth had found its place in galactic politics. The incident with the Vrex Dominion had taught everyone valuable lessons about respecting Earth's ecosystem. Now, a new balance was emerging. Frank stood on the observation deck of the International Space Station, newly expanded with alien technology to accommodate interspecies meetings. Earth looked peaceful from up here, its blue oceans and swirling white clouds giving no hint of the evolutionary crucible it represented. Beautiful view, Diane said, joining him at the window. Hard to believe that's the planet everyone in the galaxy now calls the Living Arsenal. Better than some of the other nicknames, Frank smiled. I particularly dislike Death World. Kyle floated over to them in the low gravity, tablet in hand. The United Nations just approved our proposal. The Planetary Biodiversity Defense Force is officially established. Frank nodded with satisfaction. After the Vrex incident, Earth's governments had recognized the need for a dedicated organization to manage interactions between Earth's wildlife and alien visitors. Frank had been appointed scientific director with Diane as diplomatic liaison, and Kyle as their research coordinator. Any word from the Nimbari? Diane asked. Their delegation arrives tomorrow for the classification ceremony, Kyle replied. Chief Taxonomist Gleekor personally requested that you both attend. The next day, representatives from 27 alien species gathered in the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall in Geneva. The dome-shaped building featured environmental chambers that allowed beings from many different worlds to attend comfortably. Frank, Diane, and Kyle sat in the front row as Gleekor took the central podium. The elderly Nimbari looked more formal than ever in ceremonial classification robes decorated with symbols representing thousands of known worlds. Honored representatives? Gleekor began, his voice translated simultaneously into dozens of languages. Today we finalize the official classification of Sol 3, known to its inhabitants as Earth. This classification comes after extensive study and deliberation. Holographic displays activated around the hall, showing images of Earth's most formidable creatures, a great white shark with rows of serrated teeth, a Cape buffalo charging at full speed, a tiny blue-ringed octopus with enough venom to kill 20 humans. 6 months ago, we classified Earth as a weapons laboratory, Gleekor continued. Today, we amend that classification to more accurately reflect our understanding. The main display changed to show a complex symbol that Frank recognized from Nimbari taxonomy charts. Earth is henceforth classified as Class 10 Evolutionary Crucible, the Living Arsenal, Gleekor announced. This designation acknowledges not only the dangerous nature of Earth's wildlife, but the unique evolutionary processes that created them. Thrax joined Gleekor at the podium. Our research has identified 3 key factors that make Earth unique in the known galaxy. First, the asteroid impact that ended the age of large reptiles reset evolution, allowing mammals to develop in new directions. Lupin stepped forward. Second, Earth's frequent climate shifts forced rapid adaptation rather than stability. Species either evolved new capabilities or perished. Third, Thrax continued, the emergence of humans created a final evolutionary pressure. As humans developed tools and strategies to counter natural weapons, wildlife evolved more sophisticated defenses, creating an unprecedented arms race. Gleekor raised his forearms for silence as murmurs spread through the audience. But today we recognize something our initial classification missed: the beauty in this deadly efficiency. New images appeared, a cheetah running at full speed, its body a perfect design for velocity, a mantis shrimp's striking claw with colors no other species could see, an eagle's eye able to spot prey from impossible distances. Earth's deadly adaptations represent not just weapons, but artistic perfection through evolutionary pressure, Glicor said. And its apex species, humans, represent something even more remarkable: beings who emerged from this crucible with the capacity for both destruction and creation. Frank felt a surge of pride as representatives from across the galaxy turned to look at the human delegation with new respect. After the ceremony, Frank found himself on the space station's observation deck again, this time accompanied by Z.K. Thrax. The Nimbari researcher's skin had taken on a peaceful blue shade as he gazed down at Earth. "Your world has changed galactic science forever," Z.K. Thrax said. "Several planets have established Earth zoos where visitors observe your wildlife from safe distances," Frank laughed. "I saw the security measures at the one in Alpha Centauri. 3 force fields between visitors and a Wolverine exhibit." "With good reason," Z.K. Thrax's skin rippled with amusement. "On my world, a creature 1/10 as aggressive would have caused mass evacuations." A small shuttle docked with the station, bringing new visitors. Among them was Mrs. Patterson, Kyle's grandmother, who had become something of a celebrity among aliens fascinated by humans' ability to bond with dangerous animals. She stepped onto the observation deck with 2 of her German shepherds, specially trained for zero gravity. The dogs floated calmly beside her, tethered by slim leashes. Several alien diplomats backed away nervously. Despite the comprehensive safety briefings they had received, Mrs. Patterson simply smiled and commanded the dogs to stay with a quiet word. "This is what still amazes us," Z.K. Thrax told Frank. "Not just that Earth produced such creatures, but that humans formed partnerships with them." Diane joined them, bringing news from Earth. "The controlled biological exchange program is working. Well, we've shared information on venom compounds that help the Grell develop treatments for neural diseases. In exchange, they've provided drought-resistant crop technology." "And the biosecurity protocols?" Frank asked. "Strict but effective," Diane replied. "No Earth organism leaves the planet without triple containment and a human handler. The Vrex haven't made any more attempts since their ambassador was invited to observe a Komodo dragon feeding demonstration." Kyle arrived with a group of alien scientists eager to meet the human team. Among them was a young Nimbari researcher who approached Frank cautiously. "Dr. Holloway," the young Nimbari said, "I've been studying your butterflies. Such beautiful creatures." "They're mostly harmless," Frank assured him. "That's what concerns me," the Nimbari admitted. "Why would evolution create such visible targets? On any sensible world, they would be camouflaged," Frank smiled. "Some are poisonous and advertise it with bright colors. Others mimic the poisonous. One's for protection, and some are just beautiful," Mrs. Patterson interjected, floating over to join them. "Not everything needs a deadly purpose." The young Nimbari's skin shifted to a confused purple. "But according to our research, the most beautiful creatures are often the most deadly." Frank looked out at Earth, thinking of its coral reefs filled with both beauty and danger, its rainforests teeming with color and venom, its oceans where grace and predatory efficiency combined. "Maybe that's the final lesson Earth has to teach the galaxy," Frank said. "Sometimes beauty and danger are the same thing. Our world forged creatures that are both deadly and magnificent. And it forged us humans who learn to appreciate that deadly beauty, protect it, and live alongside it." As if to emphasize his point, one of Mrs. Patterson's dogs floated up to the window, looking down at Earth with what seemed like the same wonder as the assembled galactic representatives. A creature bred from wolves, domesticated by humans, now in space, the perfect symbol of Earth's unique journey. Class X evolutionary crucible, Z.K. Thrax repeated the official designation. "It still doesn't fully capture what your world represents." "What would you call it, then?" Diane asked. Z. Kythrak's skin shifted through several thoughtful colors before settling on a deep gold. Perhaps. Home of the species who befriended living weapons. Frank smiled. That works too.